Melissa get started. And this is a More Than Money Matters workshop, your blueprint to thrive. And so it's kind of for everyone, those of us with some gray hair and those of us without gray hair. And I met Melissa, I don't know, a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. She's just a neat gal. So we're excited to have her. And so yeah, get more bagels, coffee, whatever, and take it away.
All right. So is our goal to end at 11:30? Is that the plan?
You know, close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So we'll
Doesn't
see.
leave you much time, but.
Yeah, you know, it's all good. My name is Melissa Arbuckle. I'm a financial advisor with Thrivent, and I just want to ask a question of the room. How many in here would agree that staying on top of financial information, financial matters, is a lifelong learning process?
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. So Thrivent provides thousands of hours of financial education in the community every year. And I'm here today to spend probably about 40 minutes now with you talking about the topics that we have scheduled for today. Presentation, I scheduled 3 topics. I don't think we'll get to them all, so I think we'll get to 1 or 2. The first one is the financial foundations, your blueprint for success. The second one is a little bit about Thrivent's approach to building a retirement portfolio. So we'll see how much we get through, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. Now I want you to imagine a couple sitting in my office, and I say to the couple, "Why are you here?" And they say, "We want to save money." And I say, "Tell me what you're saving for." And that couple says, "We're saving to put an addition on our house." And I say, "Why?" And they say, "Well, because our house is too small." And I say, "Why?" And they say, "Well, because we have a large family and it's important to us to have our family over, and the house feels too small when we do that." And I say, "Why?" And they say, "Because family is one of the most important things to me, and I want my family close by." So you might be thinking, what's with all the whys? Why does she keep asking why? And the reason is because knowing your why makes moving your finances easier to do. It helps you understand your motivations and your values. And as an advisor at Thrivent, that's what we want to do. We want to help understand what are the values, what is behind your decision for whatever financial decisions you're making. It's really less about the money and more about what you value in life. And that's what we do at Thrivent. All right, so today we're going to talk about 4 money moves that help you lay a financial foundation for your future. And this applies whether you're just starting out or whether you're, in your 60s and approaching or post-retirement. So the 4 things are pay down debt. Then we're going to look at ways to manage expenses. You'll learn an important tool for helping to build your emergency savings. And then we'll talk about strategies that help you face potential derailers of your financial plan. All right, and then finally, I am going to talk about 2 different resources that you'll have access to after this session. So when I talk about those, they're also on this evaluation form, and you can just put a check mark at the top if you're interested in that. All right, so I'm going to ask you, what is behind the money decisions you make? The key to your financial decisions is understanding your why. So whatever decisions you're thinking about financially, there's something that's prompting you to make them. And your why has a lot to do with that. So we talked earlier about the family that wanted to put an addition on their house. But you could replace that with any financial goal that you might have. Maybe you're wondering how you're going to save for your kids' college, but you're still paying your own student loans. Maybe you're thinking about that retirement goal that you had, and now you're 5 to 10 years into retirement, and you haven't quite done that thing that you always talked about. Maybe it's a down payment on a new home or a cabin or something like that. But when you know what's important to you, it can help you, when you know why it's important to you, that's gonna help you set goals and make decisions. I need to pick this up. I don't like having it down there because I feel like I keep looking so far down. So the goal is to understand your why, and that's what we do at Thrivent. So this isn't a one and done. I don't expect everyone in here to leave knowing this is my why. It's a process, just like we talked about building the financial plan. But Thrivent is a purpose-driven organization, and our goal is not just to build financial plans, but to start with the why and build the financial plan out of that. I want to tell you a little bit about why I joined Thrivent and why it's important to me. So I am 52 years old. I had my first baby and got married at the age of 18. Right out of high school, that was not part of my plan. My husband and I, we didn't have any money. He had a job making $6 an hour. That was the early 90s, so it was a little more than $6 an hour is now, but it wasn't very much. And so we really struggled. We had goals of buying a house, which thankfully we were able to do quite early, but we also spent a lot of time using debt to manage our expenses. We just didn't feel like we had the money coming in to manage those expenses. Years and years and years of being in debt, and years and years and years of holding on to a goal that I had of going to college. I can say now, 52 years later, I'm not completely out of debt, but I am down to the mortgage, and I have gone to college, gotten 3 degrees, have 3 grown children, 3 grandkids, and another one on the way. And that has been a long process. I've been married to my husband since 1991, so is that 34 years, I think? So that's been a 34-year-long financial planning process. But that is why I do what I do. I do what I do so that people can feel confident in working toward their financial goals and have someone there to help. All right, so we're going to look at something called the financial house. I want you to look at this and kind of visualize where your current and future circumstances lie on this house. All right, so are you building the foundation? Are you at a place where you are growing your money? We also call that accumulation phase. Are you at a phase where it's time to start spending the money? You've come through the accumulation phase and now it's time to start turning that money into whatever it was that goal was that you started setting the money aside for. Decisions you make in your finances can depend on where you are today, but also where you want to go. And they can start simple. I know financial planning can feel very overwhelming. There's a lot to know. There's a lot on the news. There's just a lot of information out there. And it can be hard to know what is the right step. But it can start simple with the foundation. I also want to acknowledge that finances have a big emotional component. How many in here have had an emotional response to your financial situation at some point in your life? Okay. Our emotions and our finances are very intertwined. Maybe it brings up shame or guilt about spending habits. I know for me, I carried a lot of guilt about being in debt for a long time. It can create stress. It can make you think about things you don't want to think about. You know, maybe you're thinking about, hey, my spouse is going to maybe need very expensive care, and it's hard to think about that. I don't like thinking about that. So remember that every day is just one day in the financial journey, so we work through those things on a slow basis. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, who remembers the name of the presentation today?
The blueprint.
Financial foundations, your blueprint for success. So we're going to start in the foundation level of the house. Okay? So we're going to start with this idea about the obstacles that could stand in the way of your financial goals. And the first one is paying down debt. Now I get asked all the time, people come in and they say, should I pay down debt first or should I save first? Should I pull out of retirement to pay off my house Or should I leave my house payment as is and keep taking out for retirement? And the answer is it really depends. It really depends on your situation, where you're going, what your time horizon is. So it really is a question to dig into with someone one-on-one so that you have an idea of what's right in my situation. Now, in general, if you have someone coming to you that says, hey, I'm in debt, so I don't think I should save until I'm completely out of debt. In general, I recommend that people at least do some saving alongside the paying down debt, right? We don't want to just avoid saving. If I had done that, I would have no retirement until 6 years ago when I got out of debt, right? All right, so how do you manage your debt? Pretty simple process. So first thing is to just really take some time to face what's going on. Make a list of, hey, what are the debts that we have? What are the things that we owe money on? Understand the balances, the payments, the interest rates. Automate payments, so contact those creditors and say, hey, I want my minimum payment paid every month on the due date, right? So that we can avoid late payments and fees and interest on the fees and on it goes. Does anybody know what credit card rates are at these days? They're anywhere from 19 to 29%. I had a young person recently who bought a truck, 24% interest on his truck.
Wow.
Yeah. You also can contact creditors about changing due dates and creating payment plans if that is something that you need to help manage that debt. Also, if you are a person who says, hey, I really need help kind of looking at that debt and looking at my expenses, we have a free program at Thrivent. It is totally free. You don't have to be a Thrivent member. You don't have to be a Thrivent client. It's called Money Canvas. Money Canvas is designed to help people manage and understand their income, their expenses, their cash flow, and their debt payment. It's really valuable for young people that are just kind of starting out for the first time. 3 free 1-hour sessions with a coach, and it's just part of Thrivent's Generosity program. All right, so the second derailer is expenses. How do we effectively manage our expenses? Getting a handle on your expenses is one of the best things you can do to help your financial plan come to fruition. And I will tell you, it does not matter if someone makes $50,000 a year or $500,000 a year. Most people do not have a clear handle on the money they are spending. They know, this is my house payment, this is my car payment, these are my utilities. Well, when we start digging into where's the rest of that money going, it is very often that people aren't really sure where it's going. So these are some of the places that money is going. So take a look at this list and just think about, where might some of your money be going that you're not thinking about? Are you paying medical bills? Like my husband had a procedure recently and it just feels like every 2 days he's getting another medical bill, right? He's getting a medical bill for the facility and then one for the doctor and then one for the lab and then one for the other doctor who read the lab results and that type of thing where it's just, we don't have a clear handle on how much do we spend in medical expenses last year. Meals out, that's another one. So the good thing about life today is how many of you are just like carrying green cash in your pocket and that's how you pay when you go to a restaurant or the store or...
Well, my husband does, I don't.
Your husband does, yes. The good thing is that it is very easy to go back and retrace where have we been spending our money, right? We've got credit card statements, bank statements, Venmo apps. So that is one way to really start to get a handle on your expenses is to just track what happened for the last 3 months. What did they want me to say on this slide? Oh, yeah, the whole idea behind this slide is just what is your spendable income? So what income do you have coming in after taxes, after whatever deductions are coming out of your paycheck, what is that net income? That's how much you have to spend. Okay? Now, how much of that spendable income is actually spendable for fun? Well, we got to figure out what are our expenses. So really tracking what's the money coming in, what's the money going out, what's the spendable remainder, and where am I spending that remainder? It can be simple or as complex as you want. I know a lot of times it can be tempting to grab not expensive, but a complicated app for budgeting or creating a spreadsheet. If that's your thing, cool. But it can also just be done on a yellow legal pad or the back of a napkin if you really want to be simple. All right, so spending less than you make, that seems obvious. Don't spend more than you make. Well, if I don't know how much I spend, how do I know if I'm spending more than I make? This is sort of a guideline or a goal or a simple way to think about how to divide the money that you're making. The goal should be of your take-home income, 50% of that goes to pay for things you need, 30% pays for things you want, and 20% into savings. It's not always going to be perfect. Life is fluid, things change, but this is sort of a place to start. And when we talked about sort of reconstructing, you can really see in the last 3 months how close was I to this? And what shifts could I make to get closer? Now, remember when I said that your financial journey takes time? And I also talked about I would encourage people to save early in their financial journey, right? Even if they are paying off debt. And here's why. This is the benefit, the value of time, right? So this is talking about if someone had a $50,000 annual salary, gross biweekly paycheck of $1,923, depending on whether they decide to put 1%, 2%, or 3% in savings, the difference in what they would have after 10 years. And that's the policy or the concept of compounding, right? The earlier we start, the more we can have. Let me see. All right, so paying down debt, managing expenses so that we have that money to save. But now how do we go about building the savings? All right, there's lots of reasons to save. There's lots of kinds of accounts. I'm not here to tell you exactly how to save and which types of accounts. But we're going to start just by talking about emergency savings. So 4 in 10 Americans could cover an unexpected expense greater than $1,000. Well, the opposite way to think about that is 60% of Americans, if they get an emergency expense or an unexpected expense of $1,000, would not have a way to cover that. So what are they going to do?
Credit card.
They're going to put it on a credit card. Okay, and then we just talked about the average credit card, 24% interest, 29% interest. All right. So, let's see here. All right, so we're going to just talk about, imagine a young couple. They have 2 children, 1 on the way. They're both working, things are going great. But suddenly, one of the spouses shows up at work, and they get told they're laid off. Okay, so now they're laid off, there's no income coming in. Maybe there's unemployment, but unemployment covers not all of the income they had coming in. And then now they're down to 1 income, and they also learn that there's something with their unborn child that's going to create some additional medical expenses for them. This family is going to feel stressed, overwhelmed, scared, not sure about how they're going to meet those expenses. Now, fortunately, this couple that I'm talking about they had a plan in place. And their plan was, when they paid off their vehicle, they took that money that they had been paying to the vehicle every month, and they put that into savings. So it was $400 a month vehicle payment. When that car was paid off, they transferred that $400, rather than lose track of it, rather than just kind of let it flow out into the world, they moved that into a savings account. And they had done that for 2 years before this all happened, and they had $9,600 in savings to help with the cost of doctor's visits. And even if you have health insurance, what I learned recently, I told you I have 3 grandchildren, and all 3 of them were born prematurely and had to have extended stays in the NICU. And it's expensive to park at a hospital. It can be $12 to $17 a day just for the parking. And then parents are going in and out, and they're needing to buy meals out. And there's just a lot of expenses that go along with a medical emergency over and above the actual cost of the medication, or the cost of the medical bills. All right, so an emergency fund. All right, so building an emergency fund is not an overnight situation. If it were, we wouldn't need to build the emergency fund. We'd already have it, right? We would just move money into an account and say, this is our emergency fund. It's something that takes time and patience. So I just want to encourage people to remember that we don't have to do it overnight. Let's suppose we're just going to set that first goal. We're going to work to have 1 month of expenses in an emergency fund. So 1 month of expenses could cover something like, I lost my phone and I need to replace it. I need to repair something, I have a car repair. My washer, dryer, refrigerator went out and I have to do a repair on that. So starting with that 1 month of expenses can really just give that little cushion and avoid needing to pull out that credit card when something comes up. Then we look at, okay, what's the next goal? Once we have 1 month, can we bump that up to 3 months of emergency expenses? Now, once we have 3 months of expenses in an emergency savings, now we can cover something like, I need to take FMLA for a month to take care of an ill family member and I'm not going to get paid. I have emergency savings to do that. Now, what if we were looking at 6 months of income in an emergency savings? Now, I don't know how all of you, I don't know anybody's finances in here, but I know that when I say to some people, hey, let's get 6 months of income into an emergency savings, their eyes glaze over. Because if you're bringing home, $5,000 a month, that's $30,000 in an emergency fund. But again, it's something that we build to, and it is something that that really can help in an extended, somebody loses a job unexpectedly, somebody gets sick or injured, we have that 6 months of expenses. We are really running, I'm gonna just kind of start to fly through here because we have less time than I thought. So we're talking about the 4 money moves: paying down debt, managing your expenses, building your savings, and then protecting your income, right? So Thrivent does income protection products, so we do life insurance, we do disability insurance. I'm not going to talk a lot about those today, but I do want to remind you that not planning for unfortunate things to happen doesn't mean they won't happen. Nobody wants to think about what happens if, but not thinking about it or not planning it does not actually reduce the likelihood of something happening. So preparing for the unexpected. When you think about your biggest asset, how many in here are retired? Okay. All right. So for those of you that aren't retired, I want you to think about what's your largest asset. Now, most people are going to say, my home is my largest asset. It's worth $400,000 or $375,000 or $600,000. The truth is, our largest asset is our potential to earn an income for the rest of our life. If you think about your annual income and you extrapolate that out to 20 years left to work, 30 years left to work, 40 years left to work, that amount far exceeds the value of your home, and that is your most important asset. So when we meet with people, we do talk about how do we protect that asset, the same way we protect our cars and our houses through property and casualty insurance. There are ways to protect income, which is our biggest asset. All right, I'm gonna pop ahead. Since we have a lot of people in here retired, is everybody okay if I pop ahead to the retirement part?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna just stop here real quick. The Swiss Army knife, look at that Swiss Army knife. It can be a knife, scissors, a pliers. Who has a Swiss Army knife? Who carries this? All
I don't
right.
carry it.
You don't carry it. Do you carry yours?
Oh, yeah, it's in the car.
All right. A Swiss Army knife can do all kinds of things exactly when we need it to. It's there, we pull it out, it does its thing. Life insurance is very similar. So the reason I'm stopping here is because I often get folks in my office who say, I'm retired, I have all these assets, I don't need life insurance anymore. And that may or may not be true depending on your scenario. But this talks about sort of how life insurance can be used throughout your life, much like a Swiss Army knife, to do different things throughout your life. So it can replace income when you're young and in your income earning years. It can help fund a specific goal. So it can fund something like college tuition for children, college tuition for grandchildren. It can fund keeping a business afloat after a business owner passes, legacy, charity. I want to get, no, I'm going to go right back here. I want to talk just a little bit, actually, you know what, it comes up here. All right, we're going to jump ahead. So there we go. Pay down your debt, manage your expenses, build your savings, and protect your income. Those are the financial foundations. Now we're going to talk about a well-balanced retirement income plan. Okay? So when we're talking about retirement income, we want to divide our thinking about our expenses into what are our needs, what are our wants, and what are our wishes. Okay? When Thrivent thinks about income, we start with what is our guaranteed income in retirement. So most families, most couples have 2 Social Security checks coming in, guaranteed for life, barring any craziness with what happens, but the thought process, right? The concept is that this is guaranteed income for life for 2 people, and then perhaps there's a pension, also guaranteed for life, barring that you get the letters that say, hey, this pension is underfunded and possibly won't be continuing. But there's a lot of safeguards in place, right? They say, but we have this insurance. So Social Security and pension. Social Security and pension, in most cases, barely cover the needs, the housing, the food, the medical, for a married couple. And like much, much less often, actually covers the wants and wishes, right? So there's a gap. So how do we fill in the gap? Who knows how we fill in the gap?
401 or other retirement savings or investments.
Through our assets. Our assets are what fill in the gap if we have them. My father-in-law, no assets. He doesn't have anything to fill in the gap. But we fill in the gap with things like 401ks, Roth 401ks, IRAs, brokerage accounts, cash value life insurance. Those are the things that fill in the income gap. And then we further sort of break this down at Thrivent into thinking about near-term needs and growth needs. So funds that we know we're going to need to spend in the next 5 years, and then funds that we aren't going to need for 5 years or longer, those can be more of in a growth strategy. All right? There's 2 ways to diversify our retirement savings. One is diversifying it into our asset allocation, right, our risk tolerance. So the near-term money, we maybe want to take a little less risk with that near-term money. And then we have a bucket of growth money that we can be a bit more risky with because we know our near-term is taken care of. The other way to diversify is through tax diversification. So there's 3 buckets in the tax diversification. There's tax now, tax later, and tax never. Who likes the tax never bucket?
I do.
Right? Okay. Let me just get up to my page here. All right.
Can I just ask, is that supposed to be changing on the screen?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Patricia, I was looking at that.
How long has it been doing that?
Since life insurance.
Well, what the heck? Since life insurance, that was a long time ago. You guys didn't see this was Army night?
No,
Oh my gosh, okay.
I think you were all afraid to say anything, so.
Well, thank you. Patricia, you don't want a prize. You can find me for a prize afterwards. I wonder, let's see if I disconnect me from the internet. Oh, I did, that's it. You know, there's always gotta be a something that happens.
Well, you were explaining it enough, so.
Well, right,
It's
and
fine. We've moved on, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I am disconnected from the internet, that's the. Okay, well, I lost internet connection with Grace Internet Stream. Maybe, can we turn the lights back on? Then I
let's do
can.
that.
That was Lee.
Well, because we can see the one slide. There we go.
Yes.
Melissa, you were doing outstanding, so.
Thank you.
If that, yeah, if we don't have
Yeah.
slides, we'll.
Here, see?
Yeah.
It's okay.
There you go, look at the gap and the long term and the near term. All right, well, I'm just gonna move along here. So tax now, tax later, tax never again, right? So, who wants to guess where most of people's retirement savings bucket is?
Tax number.
Tax later.
Tax later, that's the right answer. So tax now is any account like a checking account, a savings account, a CD, a non-qualified brokerage account, something where at the end of the year they send you a 1099 and then you claim it as dividends and interest on your tax returns. So if you have dividends and interest on your tax returns, that's because you have a tax now bucket that you're paying tax on as you make gains, right? You sell some stocks, you get capital gains, you pay the tax. Tax later is all of those 401ks, IRAs, those funds that we did not pay taxes into when we started saving it, but we're gonna pay taxes when we take it out. How many of you contributed to a tax later account when you were working? 401k, IRA? How many of you still have a lot of money in a bucket like that? Okay, good amount of it. So here's the thing about those. They are great when we are young and starting out and saving because we're getting a tax break on the way in. The problem, what's that? And often matched, that's true too. What we often find when people come to our office is that I would say for the average person, at least 75% of their income is in that bucket. Now, the tax never bucket, I don't have anything up there now. Tax never bucket is things like Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, HSAs, cash value life insurance. All of these things, when we pull income from those, they are not going to be taxed. I should clarify on the cash value life insurance. You're not taxed on any money that you put into that policy over the years. So as you're pulling money out from cash value life insurance, you're pulling out your cost basis first and you're not getting any tax on that. And if you pass away and your beneficiaries get that life insurance, they're not paying any tax on it. So the tax diversification process at Thrivent, I want you to think about if you need to pull $50,000 out from your retirement assets to make up that gap we talked about. If you're pulling it out of a tax later bucket, are you gonna pull out $50,000? You have to pull out more, because you gotta pay the tax man, they're gonna take their cut, so maybe you're pulling out 68,000. Or whatever, I don't have the math right, but you're pulling out more and you're paying the tax person at whatever tax rate you happen to be at. Money that's in a tax never bucket, when you need 50,000, you take 50,000. You don't have to take any extra because you either already paid the tax or no tax is gonna be owed. I'm just trying to figure out how to wrap this up in like 2 minutes, so let me just, okay, so what I want to talk about is what we talk about, the risks in retirement. We call it the widow's tax. Has anybody ever heard the term the widow's tax? Okay, yeah. Have you experienced it? Okay. We talked about the guaranteed sources of income in retirement. 2 Social Security checks, maybe a pension check. When one person passes, we lose a Social Security check. We lose the lower one, so we do get to keep the higher one regardless of who passed away. Pension, depending on what pension elections were made or what the pension company offered, we potentially also lose pension income, some or all of the pension income, when that person passes. But in addition, the double whammy is that also we now have a tax issue, because what used to be the 22% tax bracket when we were married filing joint, that 22% tax bracket starts a lot sooner when we're filing singly. Now, for anyone who's lost a spouse, do you think it is, well, I'll say what's the experience? Did your expenses immediately cut in half because one person was gone? Right. So that's part of what makes a well-balanced retirement portfolio. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's also a widow's tax because your car insurance goes up because you don't get the deduction. There are all kinds of little hidden things like that.
All kinds of things that start to cost you more. So here's something that you'll remember earlier. I said I get a lot of people in my office who say, hey, I'm retired. Why? I'm retired. I've amassed my savings. I have enough money. I don't need life insurance anymore. My kids will inherit all of this money. Life insurance can also be a really valuable tool to help manage this widow's tax situation we're talking about. So we can have a life insurance policy that is then used by the survivor to replenish funds, that is used by the survivor to help pay that increased tax rate, help increase the amount of savings so that as we're pulling similar amounts from our assets, or maybe we're pulling more because we have less fixed income, we can use life insurance proceeds to help build that. The other thing that when we talk about derailers in retirement, one of the largest derailers is long-term care events.
Yeah.
Somebody who needs long-term care, it could be a nursing home, but it might not be. It could be they need home, what do you call that, adult daycare. They could need home care. Maybe we need people to come in and help with showers. My own experience, my father-in-law just eventually got to where he could not help his wife with showers anymore. She was combative, she was strong, and it just became untenable for him to help her. He helped her for 15 years and then just couldn't. A long-term care event is one of the hardest hitting situations on a couple's retirement asset savings, right? The average cost of nursing home care in the state of Minnesota is $15,000 per month. Okay, so $15,000 a month. Extrapolate that out over a year, you've got $150,000, $180,000 a year. Average stay in a nursing home is 2 years. So $360,000, thinking about Our retirement assets, that's a pretty significant, even if you have $1 million, that's more than 33% of your retirement assets. So one way to help with that is thinking about, does a life insurance policy, or does keeping a life insurance policy that I got when I was younger make sense as a way to replenish money that potentially gets spent in a long-term care event? All right. All right, that is kind of the quick version of retirement income planning. I'm gonna just tell you a couple things. So I really super would appreciate if you could fill out this survey for me. Just tell me how I did. Let me know if you want me to contact you or if you don't want me to contact you. At the top, it talked about educational resources. So the educational resource, I could get you a copy of that financial house, which it's a little bit more of a robust version. It has check marks. You can go in and do a little checklist for where you're at in your financial house. The other thing I can get you is what we call our tax efficiency checklist. It gives you 3 columns to kind of look for yourself. How much do I have in tax now? How much do I have in tax later? And how much do I have in tax never? If you would like to come in and talk about your personal financial situation, you could check the box about, hey, yeah, I want to come have a complimentary strategy session. I want to just look at what I have and get some thoughts and ideas. And then down in this corner, if there's anything else that I didn't talk about that you would like to know more about. So Paul was asking me about Thrivent from the banking side, because Thrivent does have a banking side in addition to investments and planning. So Paul's going to write down there, Melissa, send me some info about banking. That is all I have. It's 11:30. Sorry, I had to go kind of quick, and sorry about the AV issues. If you have any questions, feel free to come up and talk to me, but these are for you to keep. A little notepad to write questions. Gave you my card. That's all I've got.
Melissa,
Yes.
could you take 10 seconds and tell us what a donor advised fund is?
Yes.
10 seconds.
Donor advised fund, 10 seconds. A donor, I should come back and do a whole thing on that, right?
Yeah.
Right, a donor advised fund is a way for you to donate funds to charities of your choice in a tax efficient manner. Meaning, you create a fund and you put assets into that fund, and that counts as your charitable donation that day. So you can be tax efficient. You can work with your advisor and say, your advisor and your tax preparer, okay, how much should I be giving this year from a tax efficiency standpoint? $50,000, $30,000, $10,000. You make that contribution and you get the tax deduction that day. Then that fund is invested. Hopefully it grows if the market is doing what it does. And at any time when you are ready, when you get the call from St. Jude, when you hear about a charity, when you decided you want to give your donation to the church, you give from that fund on your own schedule, and you don't have to worry about chasing down receipts from all the places that you're giving, because you got the tax deduction when you first put the money into that account. Did I do?
Mhm.
I don't think it was 10 seconds, but
Well, that was good. That was good. A good little taste. Excellent.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, feel free to come up if you have questions.